Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the IceCaps Weekly Wrap. I'm Amy Johnson reporting for the AHL Report. Well, last week saw the St. John's IceCaps return home to Newfoundland and home to their home ice arena of Mile 1 Center for what will be an 8-game homestand here in the month of January. And last week they kicked off that homestand with 2 games, during which time they invited the Hartford Wolf Pack into town. And they started the back-to-back series on Friday night against Hartford. And needless to say, both teams looked pretty sluggish. It was a very slow-moving game. Things didn't look very coordinated for the IceCaps in this game. They only managed to score 1 goal, and that was by Bobby Farnham in the second period. The Wolfpack went on to tie things up in the third period, forcing an overtime, and eventually did tally the game winner. And so the IceCaps did lose this first game at home, 2-1 in overtime against the Wolfpack. A couple of players did stand out in the game. However, Charlie Lindgren was again very good in net, and Max Freeberg had a number of good scoring chances. In fact, he hit the crossbar a couple of times in this one, so it really could have been a different result. It was just a matter of a couple of centimeters here and there, but ultimately they weren't able to win this game. And so Saturday night, they came back to face the Hartford Wolfpack once again, and this was a very different game. The IceCaps came out flying in the first period, and they really started to pressure the Wolfpack and kind of go toe-to-toe with them. They did end up winning this one in regulation time 4-2. Goals were scored by Max Freeberg. He finally was able to find mesh and get that 7th goal of the season. Alexander Ranger potted his first of the season for the IceCaps, and David Brohl came up big again on the power play, scoring his 4th of the season. And finally, Anthony Camara scored his 2nd of the season since signing his PTO. He also had an assist on the night, so a very good night for Anthony Camara. Another person who had a very good evening on this particular night was Jan Denis. He was set up in goal, and not only did he do a spectacular job in goal, but this was a landmark game for Denis. He was playing in his 400th AHL game, and the win made it 200 wins on his record. So congratulations to Denis on such a milestone evening for him. Transactions for this past week, there were only a few, but they were notable. Chris Terry was put on waivers earlier this week. He cleared waivers and has since been reassigned to St. John's. Jakob de la Rose was recalled by the Montreal Canadiens. He did play the other night and is still in the lineup in Montreal. And just after that, Michael McCarron was reassigned to St. John's, and so he now joins his brother John McCarron on the IceCaps roster. So looking ahead to this week, there's a 4-game schedule for the IceCaps this week. They play Tuesday and Wednesday night against the Utica Comets, always a challenging and exciting matchup between those two teams. And then they reconvene again at Mile 1 Center on Saturday and Sunday for a 2-game back-to-back series against the Albany Devils. The games against the Utica Comets begin at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:30 p.m. Newfoundland Time. And the game against the Albany Devils begin at 2:30 Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Newfoundland Time. That's it for this week's edition of the IceCaps Weekly Wrap. Be sure to follow along with us on Twitter at the AHL Report and log on to ahl.report online to find game recaps, previews, weekly forecasts, player profiles, and so much more there at ahl.report. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Amy Johnson. See you again next week for another issue of the IceCaps Weekly Wrap.